Naruto. I don't talk about Naruto very often on my channel. In Q&As and things like that, I have mentioned that I am a fan of Naruto, but specifically today we're going to be talking about Naruto to Boruto Shinobi Striker, which is essentially their take on the Xenoverse franchise. And what I mean by that is it's a multiplayer online game with both a PvP and a PvE aspect. Really, when you put all of that in perspective, it's not as much as a Xenoverse clone as it sounds. Oh, it's got create a character. Regardless, you're supposed to create your own Shinobi or Kinoichi or whatever you want to make and throw them into the world of Shinobi. This is exciting because I probably would have played a lot of Xenoverse if I was a big Dragon Ball fan, but unfortunately, I'm not a Dragon Ball fan. I like Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball's cool. I played a lot of Dragon Ball Fighters, and I intend to watch Kai and probably Super as well, but having this outlet is much better for me. However, there's been some disappointing news on this front. For people who weren't aware, there was an open beta not long ago. It was available on PlayStation, and it was unplayable. I say unplayable, it's not some type of joke. Basically, the servers were down half the time, and when you did get in, finding a match was near impossible. I played less than 5 matches throughout the entirety of the beta, and I was trying to throughout the entirety of the beta, which was 48 hours long. Bandai Namco even knew that this was going to be a problem because they put out a survey shortly after the beta and said, hey, by the way, how much of the game did you play? And the 4 options they had on the survey were like, played 1 match, completed tutorial, and didn't play at all. Those were the only option. There was no like, played 100 games, because nobody played 100 games in this beta. Character customization was very, very limited. Content in the game itself was very limited. It was just playing online, and there was a tutorial, and that was about it. All of these are completely valid complaints about Shinobi Striker in its current state. That being said, its current state is not its actual current state. What they put in the game was exactly what they wanted to test, which was the online multiplayer. This is very important for a game that hasn't launched yet. The problem is in Bandai Namco's messaging. They use the words open beta, which to most of us who have been around gaming for quite some time, we all know what that means. That means it's to test server integrity, it's to test a lot of stuff. They're not really interested in giving you a demo experience, they're interested in testing their servers and testing the things that they need to test. So when all these people got in to play the game, you saw a ton of complaints on Reddit, a ton of complaints on forums, a ton of complaints on Twitter, everyone complaining about this game and boycotting the game. You expected some type of finished product out of the beta, which I suppose is fine, but that's not how you should be looking at these betas. So whilst I disagree with these complaints, companies do need to realize that when people hear the word beta, they don't hear beta, they hear demo, and they expect certain things out of their beta that they're not necessarily getting from a company like Bandai Namco. So I hope that in the future Bandai Namco is willing to use different messaging when they're doing things like this, perhaps maybe open stress tests instead of beta, because whilst you're going to get more people flooding in from beta, you're also going to get a lot of people who are expecting a lot of different things. In its current state, I cannot recommend Shinobi Striker because I don't know what its current state is like. We know that the game's going to have a PvE mode, we know that the game's going to have a PvP mode, and we know that they're both going to be available at launch. Past that, we don't really know much else about the game. We know that there's probably going to be more customization options, but as far as PvE itself, we haven't seen any PvE. We don't even know what the story is going to be like. We know that the game will probably contain some type of cutscenes because there are cutscenes in the singular tutorial mission that we got to play, and I might as well go ahead and say that they're pretty good looking cutscenes. But past that, we don't really have much information. So I thought instead of telling you whether I recommend the game or not, I would go over 10 things that I would like to see in the full version of the game once it's released. So let's jump into this list, starting off at number 10 with the AKATSUKI robes. The AKATSUKI has become one of the most iconic groups in Naruto history, basically because of how they were treated in the story. Personally, I believe that the AKATSUKI aesthetically are very interesting, they're very cool, however, I don't think they were treated right in the story, I don't think they were ever given enough power. Really, the only threatening members of the AKATSUKI never really got to do anything. The only big threat that actually managed to do anything was Pain, and the entire time Pain was being manipulated by another person, where the other actual powerful members of the AKATSUKI like Kisame and Itachi both never really got utilized in a big way that showed you just how powerful they were. Where the other AKATSUKI members like Deidara, Sasori, Hidan, and even Kakazu, they never got to do anything big. They just fought a couple times and ended up where they ended up. Regardless though, it's undeniable how awesome those robes look, and it would be a huge disappointment to not be able to rock the very iconic robes, and perhaps even when you equip those robes, you could even get like a slash across your particular headband to show that you are in fact a rogue ninja. I would be genuinely surprised if the AKATSUKI robes didn't show up. This next one would surprise me though, and that is a Nintendo Switch version of the game. Xenoverse did come out on the Switch, it took quite some time, and the game game was in 30 FPS in most spots in the game, if I'm informed correctly, which is fine if it's going to be put on the Switch. I think it would be pretty acceptable to have a version of the game on the Switch for Shinobi Strikers that ran at 30 FPS in most spots. I would absolutely play the game, probably not PvP, but I would certainly play some PvE and have a lot of fun customizing my character on the go. However, this one is a little bit more difficult to do because it requires a lot more extra development time than anything else on this list, but it certainly would be very exciting for those of us who prefer the Switch platform like me. We're just gonna have to wait and see for that one. The next thing I want to see is samurai armor. Not only just armor, but helmets as well. The samurai faction is something that never really got established in Naruto up until the Great Ninja War, but those samurais, man, they are freaking awesome. They're nowhere near as powerful as Shinobi, or at least not most of them, but regardless, man, they look aesthetically awesome, and I think it'd be pretty cool to rock some of their armor, and especially if we get the next request on my list, which is color sliders. In the beta, we got to experience different color outfits for various designs. So if you were a Leaf Ninja, you could have kind of this white and blue version of the general Leaf Ninja loadout. I would like to have straight up color sliders like they have in Xenoverse 2. I'm not sure about Xenoverse 1 because I didn't play Xenoverse 1, but I played a little bit of Xenoverse 2 just to see what the game was like, and they've got straight up color sliders in that game. I don't think they're actually sliders, you've just got like a range between like 1 and 30-ish, I believe, colors that you can pick from. I think that would be awesome, and I think it's a much better way for them to be able to add customization to these things rather than just like unlocking another version of the Leaf outfit. And it would make armor like the AKATSUKI robes be super cool. Imagine like an all-white AKATSUKI robe with blue accents on the clouds. I think that would look awesome. And the same thing goes for the samurai armor. People will do crazy customization stuff if the color sliders ends up happening, and I think it would be a pretty big disappointment to not have them in the game. Now we're moving on to more feature-related things. I would love to see a 1 versus 1 mode set in the Chunin exams. Right now, when you queue up into a match, you have the option of, I believe it's just like regular PvP and you've got PvE. Now we don't know how that ends up working out when the actual game is released, but I would like to see a third option, which is 1 versus 1 mode. They don't even have to call it 1 versus 1, they can just call it Chunin exams and then like in brackets 1 versus 1, and the idea would be that you queue up and then it's a 1 versus 1 match, you just find one opponent and then you're smack bang in the middle of the Chunin exams, you versus your opponent. I think this is a super great idea because the Chunin exam is one of the most iconic stories in the Naruto world. Think back to when you were a kid and you first watched that, it really is one of the best stories told in the world of Naruto. Even going back to the written Chunin exams, not even the 1 versus 1 part of the Chunin exam, that was still exciting, that was still cool because it was the build up to that kind of 1v1. Now we get to see everybody fight. That was such a big deal because we hadn't really seen people fight like that up until that point in the Naruto series. Getting to see people like Neji fight Naruto and Sasuke fight Gaara. I do think it's a little bit ridiculous that despite the fact that we've had all of these excuses to throw different matchups out there, like the Great Ninja War, like the Chunin exams, and like all of these other great stories in Naruto, how come a Uchiha has never versed a Hyuga? Why has that never happened? I'm certainly very upset about it. Next up is another PvP feature. I would like to see a village hidden in the mist stage. Not a village hidden in the blood mist, none of that stuff. I want straight up village hidden in the mist. For people who don't know the difference, one was when they were evil and bad, and then there was like a progressive movement within the village, and then they became the hidden in the mist village, and they're much better now with the current Mizukage, especially in Boruto as well. And if you've watched the Boruto series, the environment in that world is genuinely impressive, and I would love to see that in game form. Next up is more body types. They've kind of teased this already in the beta. You had the option of multiple body types, except there was only one body type. The different body types I would like to see is a child size model. And I think we're definitely going to get this one because characters like Boruto, Sarada, and Mitsuki are almost definitely going to be playable just based on the character slots that are available and based on the fact that Boruto is in the freaking title of the game. And we've also seen in-game screenshots of Boruto participating in a PvP battle. So one would assume that Boruto will be playable, and if he's going to be playable, his teammates certainly will be as well. And if that is the case, I don't see any problem with them allowing you to have a child-sized body type. First of all, it allows you to play as a Genin, which is pretty cool, or at least a really young Chunin, which I think would be pretty cool, especially for those of us who grew up on the regular Naruto rather than Naruto Shippuden. It allows you to play that type of character. Also, being able to make Choji-sized people would be pretty cool as well, especially because we already have human Boulder in the game. This next one is more of a personal request that I don't think a lot of people are going to agree with, but I really want TENTEN'S Jutsu. First of all, just from a gameplay perspective, I like the idea of a ranged character that kind of forces you to go after her. If you were Tenten in this game, or if Tenten is in the game playable, she would be very powerful, theoretically, right? Because she could stop you, she could interrupt you from casting jutsu, she could do all this cool stuff from a long distance, doing a lot of damage to you, forcing you off of her teammates, very much playing a supporting slash offensive role. She would be supporting those characters who do want to get in your face, who do want to go after the flag and capture the objective. She would be helping those characters complete that task, rather than actually completing that task herself. At least that's how I have it in my mind, and some of TENTEN'S jutsu are some of my favorite in the series, and I think she was one of the most underused characters, so I certainly hope she gets a slot in this game. Speaking of another slot, how about another slot in this list? And I'm talking about more generic clothing and hair. Currently in the game right now, we have the different villages, and we've got some of Sasuke's gear, some of Naruto's gear, some of Hinata's gear, and some of Sakura's gear. But I want to see some gear that they come up with on their own. Just some random generic gear and some random generic hair options in the game right now. There isn't really much. There's just stuff based off of characters that already exist in Naruto. I don't want to be Naruto with orange hair. I want to be my ninja, and I don't think you can get that without slightly more customization options for hair, more specifically, not just hair options that are already going to be in the game, because there's already characters in the game with that hair. And finally, the last thing on my list, something that I believe will never happen just because of the way that it works within Naruto, but something if they did manage to pull off would be incredible, and that is the curse mark. One of my favorite things about the Naruto series was the curse mark. I think it was a really cool idea. It drives you to get more power, and it's a very manipulative jutsu psychologically, and I think that made it a really interesting jutsu as well. The reason this one will probably never end up happening is because of how different it was for each person with the curse mark. Look at the 4 sound ninja, they all had very different curse marks. Even going one step further, look at Sasuke, he has a very different curse mark than any of them, and then look at Kimimaro and then Jugo. These people all had incredibly different curse marks and how they interacted with themselves, both from a combat perspective and even an aesthetic perspective. I don't think it would really work in Naruto to Boruto because it would need to enhance your current jutsu, and depending on how many jutsu there end up being in the game, you would have to have incredible amounts of modifiers, especially depending on what class the curse mark was in. I could see the curse mark effectively being a support jutsu, maybe it just like enhanced all of your healing techniques, but at that point I don't think it's very exciting, and I think we would prefer to not have it in the game. That is my list of things I would love to see in Naruto to Boruto Shinobi Strikers. If you liked my list at all, let me know in the comment section below. My name has been Bilbsy, and I will see you in tomorrow's video.